So dentistry is completely familiar with occluding schemes. Here's one, I call it canine resistance. We call it, in occlusal therapy, it's canine rise. To have immediate posterior disclusion upon translation of that condyle out of CR. I think it's a parafunctional occluding scheme. Sometimes they're symptomatic. Our job is to figure out the intensity, duration, frequency, make some assumptions, and treat it.
Have resistance?
So the assumption, so as we look at as we stipulate the pathology of occluding, if we could just make the angle of these occluding incisors optimal for minimal resistance. How about this? No overlap at all. Then there's no resistance at all to go forward. Well, now you got the molars are still squeezing. So at the other end of the spectrum, make them overlap like, you're locked in. What really matters is what they do. What you have is going to be almost insignificant as to if you're going to do it or not. And if you can't get, that's why the whole reason I'm even here is that dentistry has been searching for the magic occluding scheme that eliminates all of these problems. The most ultimate you'll ever get is immediate posterior disclusion with incisal guidance, and there are angles that will help you to do that, but it doesn't stop the activity at all. So I am now stuck at, I either want incisal edge contact right now when they're asleep, or that's the best. So that's what I'm going to go for. That's essentially what this parafunctional control is going to be about. So your question was, an articulator, occlusion, rehabilitation, if you're going to do it, and not control parafunction at night with a device, how would you do it? People with diabetes can't eat 5 Snickers bars and not do a thing about it later. They have a certain disease. They've got to take their insulin or they're going to die. And for some, it's a matter of degree. When they've got the disease, you can't just stipulate it and say, well, just give them less Snickers bars. You got to do it right. Parafunction is a matter of degree. The degree of intensity dictates on how dedicated you have to be to that occluding scheme. But when it gets to a certain intensity, forget it. And that's what you can't tell. In the chair, you can't tell who they're bringing out at night to go against you. They might have the greatest clincher of all on their team, and they're going to kick your butt tonight. And you had that occlusion dialed in. So too many times you say, well, I've done this, and it's worked out great. Well, that's because that person's intensity wasn't at a level that would destroy all things. So by the concept of the slope, the guidance, the incisal guidance, all that stuff, that's stipulating the pathology and trying to treat it with the pathological act and manipulate it as if you could control it. If that you can sometimes if the intensity is low. Some people, you put in amazing porcelain veneers and they're beautiful forever. And on somebody else, you put amazing porcelain and the edges are just coming off like crazy. What's the difference? Sometimes, so you know that you never know who it's going to be. So my whole goal is to have us dentists recognize who our patient has on their team at night and the potential for it. So you're never shocked what happens to you or to your patient's teeth. And if you wait till you start to lose the game and then start to bring out your best players, that's okay. It's kind of goofy. I mean, I feel weird about, see, Barry, from his world, he can say, I would never put glass without putting about an appliance. We're like, you know what, that's not kind of too realistic. Every time you put in glass in someone's mouth or a veneer and say, and now you get one of these. So, that just doesn't seem like usual and customary general dentistry. So who is it that you make them for? So I learned the hard way, but now, when I was doing general dentistry, when I was going to do veneers, and I saw minimal incisal overlap because they had orthodontics and they've got a 1 millimeter overlap and their teeth are kind of gray and they would like them whiter, I'll ask, on a scale of 0 to 10, blah, 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 how many mornings a week do you feel fabulous? And they go, I don't, usually, well, later on we'll talk about that conversation. I don't know if I'd put an NTI on that person. because I might get a change in their mandible and their position, and now they've got an open bite, but their teeth are nice and white. And so it's kind of hard just to do that on every single patient. So my goal is just to identify the enemy, what it's capable of, and then when you're in the match, you'll know how to treat it. Here's the underside view of those same force vectors. So when you make a full covered splint, you cover, let's say you're covering the maxilla on this patient. And you've got it designed such that you have full coverage, full contact, and it's designed so that when they protrude, while still occluding, we'll have incisal edge contact and canine incisal guidance, and we'll have posterior disclusion. Because we constantly show diagrams of this, we assume that's what people do. That's the capacity of what they'll do. If you remember the line I drew yesterday saying incisal edge to edge is the most necessary, you need to protrude to incise stuff, that's all you need to do. Parafunctioners don't play by those rules. That's a great way for your splint to fail. Did the splint fail, or did the practitioner not anticipate the capacity of his opponent to make him look bad? That's what happens. There's nothing to stop that lateral pterygoid. When you give it the chance, it'll say, oh, it keeps going. And then the pterygoid goes, hey, I'm done with you. And it holds it still. And then you got a new problem. Is that condyle designed to come that far out and then be rotated closed out here? No, you rotate closed when you're over that red dot. You don't rotate closed when you're hung out to dry. Parafunction does that. Not in the chair, not when you're chewing food. It's a sleep disorder. It has nothing to do with teeth. Teeth are in the way. Teeth are a thing that the parafunction uses to make you look bad when you can't fix it right. Here's my one slide sleep course, and Barry will do a little more, but sleep goes in 4 stages. I show this to the patient. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 and 4 are more of the deep restorative sleep. 1, you're sort of passing out. You go to 2. There's a transition to 3 and 4 where most people sort of squeeze their jaws together for a little while. Then you drop into 3 and 4. Then you kind of have REM dreaming, and you start over at 2. Drop down. Oh, you clench your jaw a little bit. 3 and 4. Between stage 2 and stage 3, some people don't just squeeze their jaws. They clench them really, really hard. And it almost prevents you from dropping into 3 and 4 sometimes. You don't get deep restorative sleep. You work out, and you start over in stage 2. And you work out, and then you come back to stage 2. And as the night progresses around 2:30, 3:30, 4 in the morning, these episodes are getting a little longer and more intense. Sometimes they'll go to bed at 10 o'clock and they got to get at 1 in the morning for some goofy reason, and their headache isn't nearly as bad as it normally is. Oh, tomorrow's going to be great. They go back to sleep. They wake up at 7 o'clock with a headache again. And it's all part of this. I tell the patients, this clenching, grinding business is like a rider on a policy. It just gets stuck in there. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. They go, well, I said, do you ever have to get up to go to the bathroom? Do you ever have a weird dream? Do you ever wake up feeling refreshed? Do you ever wake up feeling lousy? Does your sleep happen the exact same every single night? Well, no. Neither does your clenching episodes. They change all over the place. It's not an exact all the same thing. And during this transition, as they're now transitioning out of this entire sleep cycle, the longer they lay there in bed with their eyes closed, they're not sleeping, but they're faking, sort of feeling like they are. The longer they lie there, the longer their teeth are probably touching. The intensity isn't nearly as bad as it could be, but then now we're looking at a duration problem. So the goal is, I'll tell patients, when you wake up and you know you're not sleeping, get out of bed. Wake up, get up. Because they'll have what they call weekend stress letdown migraine. No kidding, it's an absolute diagnosis. That the patient says, I get my worst migraines on the weekends. Well, tell me about it. So it's stress letdown, like your brain's just waiting to punish you because you had a hard week, and just on the weekend I'm really going to nail you and your life sucks. So we had a guy at a seminar we did in Solana Beach about a month ago, and this guy had these raging migraines on the weekends. On the weekdays, he was fine. So I said to him, what do you do for a living? Well, I work at the county yard on the school buses. What time do you get to work? 4:30 in the morning? Yeah. You don't get up that early on the weekend, do you? No way. Sleeps till all the way to 7.